Good evening, YouTubers. I wasn't going to make a video this evening, but my wife has pointed out that people are getting confused. I'll let her explain.
Yes, and now for something completely different. Graham had a video uploaded on his channel of me. He interviewed me in 2008 about something that happened. And he just banged it, he showed me and for once asked my permission. Normally he just bangs me and the kids up, and the kids are mortified sometimes because they don't like people seeing them when they were little.
I'm going to release one tomorrow about Ben when he went swimming with the swans. Sorry, I'm not interrupting.
Oh, well, Ben doesn't mind so much. Faith's not so keen. Anyway, it can often look a lot out of context for people and they don't really understand the year. And I said, yeah, release it, that's fine. But you didn't put the year 2008 until the end. So when people are watching it, they think, I've just said that yesterday or today.
They haven't noticed you've aged 10 years.
Well,
or more, 15.
I have aged, but what I've got a control of these days is stopping him giving me horrible lighting, like a torch when you're kids and you're telling each other ghost stories. He'd put the light under my chin, or worse, he'd film my double chin, so I'd look like...
It makes my nose look like Big Ben.
Well, I'm not a narcissist, Graham, but I mean, my God. I mean, you could film right up other avenues, couldn't you? But back in those days, you were absolutely hopeless at lighting, angles, audio, all of it. Just awful at it. But anyway, the video that you're about to see was filmed in 2008. And actually, looking at it, I did look very, very old because the day itself and coming out the back of all that, being on the run stuff and then being interviewed by ITV for 7.5 hours. And then after I was interviewed, and Graham had to sit still, so he was exhausted, I was exhausted, the production team were exhausted because they thought it was just going to be like an hour's, but the more I was talking, the more they were like, oh my God, just keep talking.
Got another tape in.
Yeah, I think they used about 3 tapes and then they wanted to use some of your old video, which was in a different format. So then afterwards they said, would you mind going down to the beach, the marina? They wanted to film us in Brighton Marina, and then someone from the marina came over and said, you can't do that. So we went and drove around with this ITV crew round Brighton and they filmed us in front of Brighton Pier. And then they said, would you mind coming to another production suite and spending a few hours converting your house? I mean, the whole day went on, and my mother and Graham's mother were babysitting, and they were on tenterhooks waiting to hear what happened because my mother didn't want me to do it. My mother was a politician and she had a lot of experience with the media. And she thought this is a really bad idea, don't do it. And there'd been a lot of negotiations going on for about 3 years over this. I mean, it sounds pathetic, but in the end, the best I could get out of them was £2,000, which I gave to Graham. Because they wouldn't pay me because I'm promoting crime, even though I don't have a criminal record. But what I said was, well, you want to use some of Graham's footage, then you pay him for his footage. And so I gave you all the money which you used to help buy our boat here in Gibraltar. Well, it helped pay the moorings and...
My money's their money.
Same, absolutely same. It helped us pay for the wrinkle foreskin guy.
And a whole new adventure in Gibraltar.
A whole new nightmare began. Yeah. So, the video you're about to see is he basically interviewed me after a very, very long, gruelling day about how I thought it had gone.
What did you want to do? Edit it on the end of this one? Or?
I think stick it on the end of this so people can see.
Yeah, okay.
I did look aged. I felt aged at the time, being asked all of that. And the whole time, actually the first 5 hours of the interview, interestingly enough, was nothing to do with me being on the run. The guy, well, firstly, when we arrived at the it was a sort of a private members club they rented, wasn't it, in Brighton Marina?
It's all the black and white in the bar. I think they just rented the room, didn't they?
Yeah, I think it was called the
Because they were
Black...
moaning about the extractor fans on the ceiling.
Initially,
Lifting the sound up.
Initially, they wanted to hire the Grand Hotel. And I said, it's a bit chintzy, it's lovely, but it's just not me. You know, I love the Grand Hotel, and I remember it being bombed by the IRA and stuff. It's really...
I remember that, yeah.
Apart from the Royal Pavilion, the Grand Hotel is a big thing in Brighton. But I said, I just don't think it's me. And I could see where they were coming from. My mother was very fearful from the beginning that they were going to have a go at her. At the time, my mother would have been 78, because it was 2008, and she was born on a decade. She was born in 1930.
Right.
She died when she was 84. But at the time she was 78. She was very nervous. She hadn't been in politics for a long time, and she was used to being bashed. And she was scared they were going to bash her. And she was right. And she'd forewarned and forearmed me. And it's an interesting comparison to Harry and his family. And I said to her, I'm never going to hurt you. Never. And the first 5 hours they interviewed me, that was all they wanted. They wanted a line, even if it was a few seconds. And I was not going to give him that, and I never did. I never gave them that. I made my word to her, and even if I hadn't made my word to her, I would never, ever do that. So I hope Harry watches this and realises, because I'm very, very proud of my mother and her political career, but I have to admit, it did have a detrimental effect. I'm different to my two sisters. My two sisters had a stay-at-home, proper 1950s housewife and mother. I didn't have that. I had my father. So I had an unconventional upbringing. My father was a lawyer and quite outrageous and let me stay up as late as I liked and didn't have a bloody clue about homework or what was going on. So my mother always used to say to me in my teenage, why are you so different to your two sisters? Which I thought was kind of an ironic comment to make because it's obvious. But we were going into the era where women were allowed to work in the workplace. And I'm super proud of my mum's political career and I don't hold any of that back. But can you imagine, you watch this video now imagine you're an ITV or a left-wing, because ITV admitted that they were finally able to pay the money because they were under Gordon Brown's administration, and they'd said occasionally governments can use propaganda, and too posh to pay, that was the situation.
The propaganda video, was it?
It was propaganda, that was why it was posh people, too posh to pay, it was propaganda for the Gordon Brown Labour. And I knew that from the outset. One of the producers was dead level with me and said, but then they got to know me and Graham and they became really quite fond of us, didn't they? In fact, I don't...
You're still friends, you one of them, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm friends with several people from ITV. I don't use Facebook anymore, but one of them is a friend of mine on Facebook. We had a big...
There was a few.
Yeah, we had a big row, the producer of Too Posh to Pay, because he was a Leaver and I was a Remainer. And we had a big row, but we remained friends. So we became quite close with the production team. And so even though they knew that it was a Labour Party, like a political party broadcast, that's what Too Posh to Pay was. And I hope you call this video Too Posh to Pay, so it sits next to the Too Posh to Pay.
Because if you type in Too Posh to Pay, Fiona Mons,
Yeah.
Britain's Most Wanted, it all comes up. You'll see. You can watch the actual documentary of her. And you were even wearing the same clothes in the video, weren't you, as you were in the actual documentary?
Oh, I can't remember. I couldn't really see on the video that you will see at the end of this, us yattering on. And the other thing that happened was we got into this very fancy private members thing that they'd hired, and they'd agreed to pay £2,000, and we got into a Mexican standoff, didn't we? I'll let you explain that part.
Well, he goes, I don't know, if I give you the money, I might just disappear.
Yeah, he said you might just get up and walk out and refuse to be interviewed.
I might. I said, but we're here.
I said, I'm not talking then.
We agreed to come. We're here. I brought you this video as well, home footage. So, you know, we fulfilled our part of the bargain. I said, give us the money, we'll sit down. I won't even leave the room, I'll stay here.
But he didn't believe me. He was so nervous. He said, but how do I know that if I give the cash to Graham, you're not going to just get up and walk out? He said, there's nothing I can do. And I said, well, I won't. I give you my word. And this went on for, how long do you reckon that?
15 minutes.
It was a real Mexican
In the end, he just got the money out and went there. And I went, thank you.
And he looked,
Let's begin.
He was like dripping with sweat, and he said, the one thing my boss said to me was, don't give them the cash until she's talked. And then he sort of looked at me all pale and clammy, and I said, yeah, let's go. Let's roll. And like I say, they grilled me for 7 hours about my family, my upbringing, my mother's politics. And then the last 2 hours were really the story. And ITV have still got it in their vaults. I had to sign a load of release.
How long was the actual programme in the end? 15 minutes?
6 minutes. 6 minutes, I think.
About 5 hours.
And a lot of that was not me talking, and a lot of it was your video.
Yeah.
I haven't timed it how much it was of me talking. So when you see people,
only 6 minutes? I think I remember it was longer.
My segment was about 6 minutes, I think. Initially, I was supposed to be the whole programme. And there were lots of legal arguments after they saw my footage, because the 2 hours where I told the story, and I had to change people's names, and it was so difficult to try and change the names to protect the guilty. I told the whole story, and the production team, I had a sound man, the producer who was also my interviewer, and he said, every time I ask you a question, can you repeat the question I say and then answer it?
That's right, I remember that.
And he had his assistant producer and the cameraman, so there were 4 of them. And as I was talking, I mean, the first 5 hours, they were as bored shitless as I was, but the last 2 hours, when I told the whole story, they were like this. I mean, they couldn't believe it. And towards the end of the story, where I said we were in Praia da Luz, where Madeleine McCann was taken, and I told them all that part of it, how we were fearful the police were going to take our Sammy and stuff. They were like, anyway, they left thinking they had absolute dynamite, which they still do to this day, and it's hidden in their vaults. But they took it back to the lawyers, who went, no, absolutely out of the question.
It's not what Gordon Brown wants.
It's not what Gordon Brown wants. It's promoting crime. It's not helping the elite, the powers that be. Graham and Fiona clearly aren't a pair of posh, rich twats. Joan Mont and Neville Mont clearly weren't posh, rich twats. It's not what we want. We can't twist it. Use 6 minutes. So, and I think you should put a link to the original Too Posh to Pay.
I will, I can find it.
It's up there. It's had something like 6 million.
Well, what I'll do is I'll leave the other video on, and I'll put it on the end of this one as well.
Oh, right, I see what you mean. But yeah, then people might think...
and then you can see what we're talking about.
Hopefully then it's put it into context, because there are some regular commenters that commented on the segment you just put up. And I got the impression they think I just did that interview today.
No.
Or it's very recent, or...
15 years ago.
And I found it really interesting seeing myself saying, hey, Fiona in the future. And I'm really proud of Fiona in the past, and of course, Graham. What a journey, what a ride.
We're not finished yet.
No, we're not.
We've got lots more
Where will the
exciting
story
and
end?
frightening adventures to go through.
Some more horrific things.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
I think that's it. How did you feel during the filming of Too Posh to Pay?
I was a bit nervous because I had some naked video on the video. So I wanted to give them some video, but at the same time I wasn't in control of the... So I'm saying, look, the stuff on here that you'll want, and trust me, the stuff on here I don't want you to have. So we was a bit nervous there in case they saw some naked gunslinging or something like that. Anyway, whatever.
There is a video video of naked gunslinging.
I know.
Not my naked gunslinging.
Anyway.
Very sexy, Graham.
How humiliating.
No, very sexy. You had a hell of a tan and a hell of a body. But I mean, he was playing a video and he on an old cassette, and my mother and his mother were in the room, and there was suddenly a flash of me with my tits out, and then it went back to the movie, and both our mothers went, and then they looked at each other, and your mum said to my mum, "Did I just imagine it, or did I see Fiona's tits?" We burst out laughing, and I think they saw your naked gunslinging as well. I think. Thank God Gordon Brown obviously didn't want that.
Do you remember when we were stranded in the south of France?
Yes.
And we staged us having sex on the bed.
Oh, stop it! Don't say
And
things
then
like that. Yeah.
What did we do?
That was a different ITV producer. That was
Yeah,
another ITV production team that we are, again, still big friends with, who've made loads of really well-known productions. But it was really interesting because he and his team wanted to make a programme about us. And we ended up going with this other team, and our other friend, he was like, "Oh, how come you used them? I didn't like the way you did that programme." And then I spoke to the guy who did make it, and he went, "Oh, I've heard of him. I don't think he's that good. You did best with me." Anyway, so
Yeah.
what you're about to see is me, how many years ago?
15 years ago or thereabouts.
Something like that.
And when the documentary didn't go out the same year, it was about 12 months
No,
later.
because of all the legal fights. There were
Yeah.
legal fights and legal fights. I won't name the guy's full name, but the executive producer was called Jeremy, and he was very stressed. And then Radio 4 asked if they could do an interview, and he was freaking out about that because I'd signed this thing saying I won't give any interviews until the programme goes out. But the Radio 4 thing was a completely different format, and eventually he agreed. But Sussex Police got lawyers involved, and they did not. They'd obviously watched the last 2 hours where I told the truth. But I changed everybody's names. I think I changed the names of the police officers, apart from Skerritt, because he put himself out in the media, but the others, I think I protected everybody. But I told the story, and of course Sussex Police and their lawyers, Chief Constable's office, will have watched it and thought, "Oh my God, we do not want the public knowing what we've put Fiona through." Because I mean, I am a pretty law-abiding, clean-living person.
They asked her at the end of the day to want to sue Sussex Police, and she said no. Just want it to be over. Goodbye.
As Black Belt Barrister says, it's a waste of time, life, energy, money. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have sued people, but I sued the people I sued because they were calling social services, trying to get our children taken. They were putting emphasis on our bosses to get us fired. They evicted us. They tried to get us evicted from 2 other places. They were attacking.
Knocks.
Our home, our children, and our livelihoods and our lives. And I had no choice in the end. I went, "I'm suing. This stops." And it was a multi-million property developer in Gibraltar, and I sued, and it was inconclusive, but I won. Basically, I drove my point home. Fuck off, leave us alone. And they went, "Whoa, we got our fingers burnt on that," and they did back off. And that was just us, our little impoverished family on our scruffy little boat. We managed to get, but I would advise anybody thinking
Not
of
to
going,
bother.
don't sue. Unless it's a life or death situation.
Let's see how much Harry has to pay up.
Oh, he's destroyed his life.
Expenses.
Anyway, let's not waste our time on that waste of
No.
space. So, yeah,
Thanks for watching.
Brighton Marina, 2008, on our boat Far Ben, coming up. 3, 2, 1, now. That game or coming off it? Right, you recording?
What did you do today?
Well, I've been interviewed by a television production company, and we were paid £2,000 for doing it. It's alright, And I feel really exhausted, and I hope that I haven't said anything wrong. Went on for hours, so it's impossible to remember everything that I've said, but I tried not to drop anyone in it or name any names, or, oh, so difficult. And hopefully they're not going to do a number on us, like other people in the media have done. And even if they don't do a number, they might do something trying to be really nice, and it could still go wrong, so we'll see. It's going to come out in months, so hello Fiona, in months to come, full of tears and misery. If you're really pissed off, you can blame me, because it's all my fault. I know my mum is going to blame me if it all goes pear-shaped, but we just hope that it's all part of the good Lord's big plan and we can't see the bigger picture. But I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm not going to say Tyrone's famous words. It'll be alright, I'm sure it'll be alright. And if it isn't alright, there's nothing I can do about it now. And that £2,000 is sitting all nice and fresh now. I guess it's all been spent, or whatever, by Graham, because it's Graham's money.